welcome back to the Get to Know Show, where we bring you great stories. This is Season 3, Episode 1. My name is Maki Sankara Mungabo, and we're here with a special guest, Ruth Nyambura. Ruth, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So the conversation today is the criminal justice system of America. And just a backstory, when I met you at first, I remember with one of the first conversations that we had were about, the criminal justice system, and I could really see the passion just coming straight out of that conversation that you had about, the criminal justice system here. So just so our audience can get to really know you, who is Ruth? And if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would those words be?
Oh, that's a deep question. Ruth, I would say, is proud to start with. Proud of who I am, proud of where I come from, proud of the people I involve myself with, proud of my accomplishments. So pride is one. I would say I am also ambitious. So I have ambitions and I have goals that I want to reach just like everyone else. And those, I let them lead my life and I let them lead the directions that I want to take. I would also say that I am family oriented in terms of the people that I hold in my life as friends and family, or people that I hold dear for me, and those social interactions really matter. And so that's a huge part of my life and who I am.
Yeah, that's really good. You mentioned something about you take pride in where you come from. So could you just tell the people what has been your journey and where you come from and how that is of value to you?
Yes, so I was born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya, and have been there since I was 14, since about 7 years ago when we moved here, Lincoln, Nebraska, and went to high school in Lincoln, and now I'm about to start my senior year in Nebraska Wesleyan. It's been a really good journey. Has its ups and downs, but such is life, so.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned that you're a senior right now in college, so your major being criminal justice, religion, and philosophy. What sparked your interest to go this direction?
Good question. So I actually was choosing a different path before that. I had started with acting and psychology before I decided to major in what I have now. And I honestly would say it dates back to one of the first shows that my dad introduced me to when we moved here is Forensic Files. I don't know if you've watched it or anyone else has watched it, but that really did start my interest of crime and crime scenes and that field. And then when I got into college and I was boggling my mind on what I wanted to do, then I was like, oh, they have some passion in crime, not sure exactly what direction I want to take it yet. So I took a class and I really enjoyed it. And I was watching a Netflix documentary by the name of Khalif Browder, the story of Khalif Browder. I highly recommend it if anyone hasn't watched it yet. And that really is what solidified it for me. And the story tells, the documentary tells of a story of Khalif Browder, who was arrested at the age of 16. Right. And he was pretty much put in the system, and everything wrong with the juvenile system is in his story, where he was in prison for about 1,000 days. 700 of those days were in isolation. So just a long list of terrible things that just happened to him. And I watched that and I was like, he's not the only one going through this. He's not the only juvenile going through. He's not the only person going through this. So with that, then I decided that that's where my passion is. And I felt very strong about that case, and I felt very strong about fighting for people's rights like that, being in the system and being treated unjustly. And that really has led me to where I'm at right now.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful that you took initiative to take that direction and be a part of the solution. So what are the main issues that the criminal justice system faces today? You mentioned about the juvenile system having issues and how that affects people. But looking at the criminal justice system as a whole in America, what are the problems that are very prominent today that needs to be addressed?
One huge issue really is race, and we're seeing that very much right now, right, with the Black Lives Matter movement. That is a huge issue, and quite frankly, I think that then becomes a root of other things that follow under that. But the American system, the American justice system, has really been built on the idea that Black is bad and white is good. And from that, then you start seeing the systematic racism from these marginalized groups, right? And noticing that there's more Black people in prisons than white, and noticing that a Black person has a higher chance of being put in death row. Right. If they killed a white criminal than if it was vice versa. And just stuff like that. So really, I do think that race, as much as it might seem like a small thing, I think it is the root of a lot of the problems that we're seeing in the justice system right now.
Yeah, when you mentioned that point, I think about all just the numbers that come about when we talk about the criminal justice system, with people of color being 5 times more likely to end up in prison than any other race. It clearly shows us that these are issues that are present today that we need to talk about and address. So what effects do a flawed criminal justice system have on the community and society as a whole?
Everything. I think it affects everything. I mean, flawed system, flawed people, flawed system, right? Flawed society. And I think it is very easy for people to push this matter aside, right? Especially people, the white community, especially looking in. I'm not black, why should I care, right? I'm not a person of color, why does it matter to me? It matters because you're interacting with people of color every day, and their struggle becomes your struggle as well if you continue ignoring it, and which is why we really need the community getting into this movement together, because we don't have a voice unless our voice is united and unless our voice is going on to one common goal. So really, it does affect everything, right? And that's why we're having so many things going on in the society right now. I mean, you've watched the news, we're all watching the news because of race and because of the broken justice system. And, like the slogan says, no justice, no peace. And I think the time right now is really showing that to its truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the solution, when we talk about solutions, that means from the top to leadership, down to the bottom to minority groups and communities. What would meaningful reform look like moving forward?
Once an individual's color begins to matter less than it does now, I think that's a step forward. And by that I mean, I don't want to be scared of being arrested when I walk out or being shot when I walk out, right? Just because of my color. I don't want to be scared of being told that I'm stealing something because I'm a black woman going to buy an expensive object in the supermarket, right? I don't want to be scared that I'll end up being shot because a police officer stopped me for a regular traffic stop. Those things that, people, or I guess the white community necessarily wouldn't always think about, that matter to us and other people of color. Once those things matter less, I think we'll have made a step forward, because really that is where the problem is people are feeling scared to live, right? We're feeling scared to live because as a black person, being black is a sin, according to the system right now. Yeah. So once we start treating everyone justly and treating everyone in the system justly, and especially even speaking about the cops right now, once the system treats them just like any other individual and stops favoring them just because they're a cop or just because they're white, those are just small steps that I think will add on to the bigger picture of a better system, which I don't even know, quite frankly, that we can ever get there, because a system that's been built on racism and on white supremacy, it will take ages to get that done. I mean, we can always make steps forward, but I would be lying if I told you that I think we'll ever get there.
In all honesty, looking at the situation of today, the people that are oppressed the most, even if they have a voice, it calls upon the people that have had the privilege to help those people that have been oppressed. And with that being said, if you're not a person of color, that's your chance to use your privilege, to address the issues and trying to correct the system that has been built to oppress, a specific group of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we talk about the problems, there are many issues, but we need to also shine light on the positive things that have happened. So what are the good things that we see today that need more light, just as a source of encouragement to keep on fighting for the righting of the system?
Community. I think we're seeing a lot of people coming together, and it's so encouraging to see. And it's so encouraging to see really everyone from different backgrounds and different race fighting for the same movement of Black Lives Matter. And really not just in this situation, but in other times when the community has to come together for a common cause. That is something that always surprises me, is that we don't recognize or we don't realize how big our voice is and how important that is to share our voice until we're in a situation where that's the only option. So I think that is encouraging to see, and it should be, I hope that it stays that way, is that we continue to come together and just set all the other unnecessary differences aside and focus on humanity and focus on, us being together and us working as a team to accomplish a goal.
Yeah, you mentioned that, how people have just been seen coming together many races. It even like went beyond the United States, and there have been protests for Black Lives Matter and this issue beyond the United States. So that's just something positive that, you know, we need more of. And so how does moving forward look like, you know, beyond just the George Floyd, another case of the many cases that we don't even see on social media? But how does moving forward look like beyond the protests that will happen? If we look a year from now, how do we keep on keeping this topic relevant and the progress relevant, and how do we, you know, keep on doing something and being a part of the solution?
Talking about it is one huge thing, right? Having those tough conversations whenever we see these things in the news, that is important. I mean, it's very evident that just because of how much we've pushed this matter, we can see like the 4 officers, all of them are being charged. Charges have been increased because of how much people are pushing this forward, right? I frankly believe that not as much would have happened if we weren't as vocal about it. So talking about it and having those conversations and pushing social media, obviously, you know, being nice to each other is really important. Another thing is just supporting, in this situation right now for the Black Lives Matter, supporting Black-owned businesses, going to salons and food places, and there's multiple places you can donate online. And you know, just like I'm wearing the t-shirt, I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter, small stuff like that. We all have different ways of advocating for different causes. So just making sure that you as an individual are peaceful with how you're representing a group, and keeping those voices out.
That's, you know, that's very important with like just supporting Black-owned businesses, and this allows, you know, just more money to circulate in the Black community, because it's a system that has been built to take wealth from minority groups and put that in hands of people that have privilege. And really, it calls upon each and every, you don't even have to be Black or be a person of color for you to support a Black-owned business. It just means that you're taking a stand, even just by you wearing that, from something simple as a t-shirt. You know, it makes a statement, and to another person who is not a person of color, you know, that is publicity, and that's letting them know about an issue that affects a minority group, but it's everywhere in society, and one way or another, we are part of it.
Absolutely, and I think this is one of those matters where it is important to have a stance, right? Because being in the middle is almost like being on the negative side, if that makes sense, right? I think right now everyone's just looking to see who's an ally, who's with us during this movement, who supports what is going on. And at the same time, people are also watching to see people who aren't saying anything, people who aren't supporting anything. And quite frankly, this is not the time to be quiet, right? This is the time to stand for what you believe. And even if it's if it's not what the majority believes in, I support in people using their voice. And you know, we can't all be on the same page all the time, and that's understandable, but I think it's really important that people do get that confidence to share what they believe.
Right. So Ruth, you know, we talked about the criminal justice system and how flawed it is, but we want to get to know you as a person. So what drives you to be a part of the solution?
I'm human. I think that is the simple answer, is being human. I can see that my brothers and sisters are suffering, and that should be a natural instinct, I'd hope, right? When you see that your brothers and sisters are suffering, the natural human instinct is to go in there and help as much as you can. And me being a person who, as a Black person, as a person who's a leader in my campus, as a person who has connections around the city, and that is important, and that is important for me to recognize that my voice does matter, and that I do have people looking at me to see where I stand and, you know, to follow that. So there's not really pressure, but I guess motivation is what I would say. There's motivation for me to use my voice more often than I usually would.
Yeah. And so what do you like to do in your free time?
Ooh, Netflix. I watch a lot of Netflix, good amount. I'm working a lot right now, so I don't have as much free time, but I do enjoy visiting with my friends. It has been kind of difficult with the COVID-19 and restrictions, but Netflix and cooking. I've been cooking a lot lately.
What's your favorite dish?
Anything meat related with chicken, I'm good. Anything with that is good.
I need to take some cooking lessons, so hopefully learning how to cook will also, you know, help me, absolutely. So, you know, we've had this conversation, and, you know, just thank you so much for your time, and please do like, share, and subscribe, and, you know, push this message forward to someone else that needs to learn about this issue that affects everyone in society. Thank you very much for your time, and like always, till next time.
I don't want to be scared of being arrested when I walk out or being shot when I walk out, right? Just because of my color. I don't want to be scared of being told that I'm stealing something because I'm a black woman.